Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure for this episode to be joined by Stacy Sherman all the way from the US. First of all, Stacy, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And as I do with all of our guests, I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Stacy Sherman. I wear a lot of hats. I am a customer experience, employee engagement director at a large corporation, Schindler Elevator Corporation, and worked at many other global companies in the past. And then that's by day. And then by night, working on my passion projects and coaching and mentoring people about doing CX right. Started with a blog in 2017, and it continued to grow and grow by helping people to make customer experience their brand differentiator.
Wonderful. And what led you, in a sense, like, were you always, since you were younger, interested in being in this space in customer experience and corporate, or was it just what happened?
Yeah, no, life did not go as planned. So I did go to school back to college. I did major in marketing. Not to tell too much of my age, but there was no internet then. And so it was marketing that turned into digital marketing. And I love digital marketing. And then when I was at one company, they started to say, we want you to do customer experience, CX, and voice of customer, VOC, is happened to be at Verizon. And I said, well, but that's not what I do now. And what is that thing? And they said, we don't know, just figure it out. And so that's what I did. I figured it out, and I started to take on more roles and responsibilities around defining customer experiences, journey mapping, what they look like from the inside, and then bringing customers to the table to be able to validate what we design as experiences, how they learn, how they buy, how they pay their bill, get help, that the way we design is actually meeting their expectations. So there became this art to it, and then science to it around measurements and metrics. So I fell into it. I'd always been in sales and marketing, and the CX thing happened. And then I stuck with it because I love the fact that it's about making customers happy. And when they're not happy, why? And fix that with teams. And same with employee experiences too.
And for those that perhaps are not, you just mentioned a little bit, but for those that are not that familiar with CX, can you explain what CX is and what is doing CX right?
Yes, that's a great question. So first, I'll tell you what customer experience is not. Customer experience is not the same thing as customer service. Most people will use that term customer service interchangeably, and it's not. So customer service is very important, and it's been around forever. And that's what you think about when you pick up your phone to call an 800 number for help on a product or service. And customer service has always been, most companies all have it, whether it's an online chat or an 800 number and other ways. Customer service and help is part of customer experience. So when you think of customer experience, the experience is in totality. The experience is holistic. So it's really walking in the customer's shoes from the moment they become aware and then interested in what you have to offer to solve their needs. That awareness is where it begins. And obviously marketing has a huge play in that. But then how do they buy it? Is it e-commerce? Is it a retail store? Is it just through a sales channel? So defining that is going to be a set of other teams that have to design that experience for a customer to actually buy what you have. So there's a whole practice and these micro moments that make up what a journey is. And so customer experience and doing CX right is a framework to actually be able to create the journeys, measure customer satisfaction, and more than just that metric along the journey. It's about driving a culture where you have employees who are engaged to deliver excellence, even when their boss isn't looking. It's about culture, it's about measurements, it's about tools and platforms, even when you have a low budget. How do you use them to enhance customer experiences and so much more?
Wonderful. It's so interesting to actually explain that there's a difference, because I do know that a lot of people use the customer experience and customer service interchangeable, and it's as you mentioned, it's kind of like one is inside of the other, and it's a small part of it.
Yes.
And it is important, yet it's not the full scope. So with your journey of being put into this situation and starting to develop, what was that led you to what one of the things that you talk about, that is the heart and science of CX? What led you to have that as one of the main drivers in customer experience, putting that heart into that?
Yes, so I believe in leading with a heart. I believe that's how I lead where I am, and that's how I like the best bosses I've had put the human first. And it is conscious decision to put the human first. It is a conscious decision to deploy processes in companies, but yet not let that override what humans need or want. Technology, right? Technology is booming. It's fast paced, but it's about how we consciously make a decision to use technology to support what we need, help maybe communications, right? Send a text message to a customer that a delivery is coming. So it can be really effective in communication and customer satisfaction. But at the end of the day, businesses are comprised of humans, and we can never let that go. So my practice is marrying the human side, the emotions, the thinking, to also the mechanics of it.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that when we talked before, this was one of the things for me on why I wanted to explore and talk to you during this episode, because I do believe that for a lot of businesses, especially when it starts getting sometimes very automated, they start to lose that element of the understanding on the importance of people. And you mentioned the word culture as well before. There is something that the best companies in the world have, that is that they care about making money and making a profit, yet they focus on creating a culture that is focused on humans. And this is something that when I work with businesses, I try to get the people that would potentially hire me to understand that at the end of the day, if your employees are well, they are happy, and they are willing to go above and beyond, then your customers are going to get that. Therefore, you're going to end up actually being more productive and efficient by focusing on the well-being of your employees.
Yes. So let's give more value to your listeners. So let's talk about how, right? Let's give them something to actually go do today. Mm-hmm. So one of the things to drive that customer-centric culture and engaged workforce is you get customer feedback. Now, it can be structured, like surveys, and it can be unstructured, meaning unsolicited, like the internet, like social media and ratings and reviews. Many, many times, customers will mention employees by name. They'll mention that Julie, went out of her way to make sure that I knew when my delivery was coming. John made sure that he corrected my billing error and followed up with me, right? These are the kind of feedback we get. And so the game changer is to take that information and bring it to your teams, celebrate, give kudos, thank those employees who are doing what good looks like and doing it right, so that they'll do more. And then when a customer is irate and when they're unhappy, you take that feedback and you use it for coaching and mentoring. And that's how you drive the culture. I mean, that's one of many, many ways, but anybody could do that.
Yes, and that's such a wonderful way. This is with conscious action. We have our 4 C's that are part of our main values, and they are connection, collaboration, celebration, and compassion. And the celebration part that you just mentioned, this is such an important one, because a lot of times for a lot of employees, and when they are working in teams, they focus a lot on the improvements and the things that are not going well, and not focusing enough on, as you mentioned, like celebrating that actually happened, that they followed up, or that some customer had a great experience, whatever it is, celebrating every single day, as well as learning from the things that didn't work out well. That celebration, a lot of times we don't take the time to do that, and it's so important.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Here's another actionable tip. So, when it comes to creating a new product, or you want to enhance features of a product or service you already have, by bringing your employees to the table from different departments, it gives them a feeling of empowerment and ownership. And then they care more because they feel like they're part of the decisions. And that is another way that you get people to be involved, and they're not owners of the company, but they'll act like it because you cared about their voice. They feel valued. Yeah. And that's important.
Yeah, there's one of the things within that that I've talked about. I run a few events on what I call conscious businesses, and with that, I try to talk a lot about stakeholders instead of just shareholders, employees being one of them, customers being one of them, and actually valuing that everyone is part of it. Everyone is a stakeholder. Everyone has a place in it. Everyone is valued. And when we get to that place, it makes it better for everyone, because we are taking everyone into account. And this is such a cool thing. And I wonder, Stacy, if you would mind sharing a little bit on how do you marry the stats and the science with that human element, because there is both sides. At the end of the day, a company needs to actually look at the metrics. They have all of these stats. How do you marry that?
So I'll take one discipline, which is journey mapping, right? One methodology. So when you're walking in the customer's shoes, literally, and going through the steps from the moment they learn about you to the moment they become a customer, and then you want to keep them loyal, you are really at the heart of what they feel and what they think, and the experiences you're designing for them and validating for them with getting their feedback at every point. So the metrics come in where you have the qualitative feedback, and then you have that quantitative. So there's real metrics. For example, my favorite is level of effort. What is the level of effort to get help when you need it? Is it really difficult or is it really easy? And then you dive into what the customer says, and then you dig deeper and deeper so that you know where there's opportunities to change. You know that I like to split them up into the controllables and uncontrollables. And so without that data, you're flying blind and you no longer can compete on price. This is what it takes.
Yes, that's such an important one. It's such an important distinction that you just made, and that controllable and uncontrollable, because at the end of the day, there are things that are completely out of your control, and it's like, okay, let's just focus on what we can actually control.
Yes. But if you don't measure all of it, you might be solving for the wrong things. You might be getting diminishing returns. So yeah, it's all really important. So I encourage people to either create an organization, and you have CX experts who can guide this discipline, and there's proven ways to do it, or outsource it. But either way, you've got to do it. And there's a lot of resources on DoingCXRight, as I call it. Besides, certainly I want people to come to my blog and listen to podcasts and connect with me. There's so much material out there. Like, you could just Google customer experience. It's amazing how much is available to learn. So start small, crawl, walk, run, I believe, but do something.
Yes, definitely. And I was wondering now, do you think that is there a difference, or perhaps there's not, with what customer experience is depending on countries and cultures? Like, is the customer experience different if you're thinking of, for example, like here, New Zealand? If the company actually is working with customers in the US, in Europe, in New Zealand, in Australia, is the customer experience different, or do you need to think of different strategies, or is it mostly similar?
I love that question. So I have two answers. One is the basic principles of it are the same. The basic principles that you have to do it, why it matters, the concept of voice of customer and voice of employee. The differences are some of the metrics, the approaches to it. And I learned that because I co-wrote a international best-selling book, and it's 24 of us from different countries that wrote this book, Customer Experience 2. And you get a real answer around the different ways to do it. But at the highest level, it is the same. Just different approaches and tactics depending on the personas and the cultures.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I totally get that. At the heart of it, it's really, really the same, and it's the very small things. And you were mentioning before some resources, and of course, I'm going to encourage people to go and search for you. But outside of what you do, what is one resource that you would recommend other people to go and check out?
So I love LinkedIn. There's a lot of groups that you can go in and listen to the conversations, chime in, start to really get in with the experts, hear the conversations. Twitter also, if you search the hashtag customer experience, you'll be overwhelmed with how much good conversation from people like me. So those are two really great ways to get up to speed. There's tons of podcasts as well, but it's just immersing yourself where the conversations are happening. And because technology and a pandemic is changing the way we work, you're getting real-time updates of how things are changing. So those are just examples of my approach. I also want to highlight that it's not about CX, this example. But there's also groups in LinkedIn, such as what I have is Women Leaders Making a Difference. There are groups like mine where people are bringing people together to talk about and empower each other. Mine just happens to be women leaders, but there's these kind of things going on also in social media. So figure out your passion. If it's diversity and inclusion, if it's a sport, leadership through sports, like there's something for everybody. So get entrenched in the communities.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned something that I want to get your take on this diversity in the groups as a team is creating the customer experience and understanding customer journeys. How important it is to have that diversity to understand also the diversity that you're going to have in your customers.
So much so. I mean, our customers are not all the same, and there's no cookie cutter approach. So yes, we need more diversity of thought and diversity in the way we approach. So it's not just internal. Our customers are the same that they're different. So yeah, that is a big topic. I love that that companies are hiring diversity inclusion leaders dedicated to that discipline. And we just did that at where I work. And I love that we're able to blend that practice and customer experience and break silos and bring it together.
Yes, beautiful. That's so good. I see it's been interesting in the last 15 years seeing how different people have been more included in businesses, and to get that diversity, of course, I'm one of the things for me is that I believe that more women should actually be in higher positions in businesses, and starting to see that more and more over the last 15 years. Actually, it's amazing because I do believe that that is going to bring one of the biggest changes. But just inclusivity in general, I think that it's the right direction that we are going through, and there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. First of all, I love that there's people like you supporting people like me. Two is my grandfather had supported my grandmother. Back in that time, most women were doing administrative work. They were nurses, they were teachers, which are amazing jobs. Many didn't work and have their own income. My grandfather encouraged my grandmother, who was really good in math. She went on to become a certified public accountant. At that time, that was unheard of.
Wow.
And so clearly you could see where my business skills, came from, including my mom. But I'd say this to you because my point is that if my grandfather, a male, and a very forceful voice, didn't support my grandmother and encourage her and give her, support the confidence to go after business and run an incredibly successful business, it may not have happened. So while it's great you're really supporting, more women leadership. I mean, yes, those are the men that I think will win in the process too.
Yes, definitely. And it's I think that it's one of the things for me when I say that as well. I like to make sometimes the distinction of the women and feminine energy. So for me, it's more of that feminine energy, the one that needs that, and also males that are open to that.
Yeah.
That it, as you mentioned, like with your grandfather, like that is also what is needed. Like males that are open and that are inclusive and that actually creating that change.
Yeah, no, it's, I feel change coming. I feel like I think that's actually one of the good out of the bad with a pandemic, obviously really bad. I feel like good is coming from it where there's a lot more connection.
Mhm.
People are being more creative to work together
Yeah.
through a screen. I think that politics is very tough in the United States, like many places. Boy, I definitely don't want to get into politics, but I do want to say that no matter what anybody's beliefs are, that there's change, particularly just a female in a top office position like that. Change is happening. So either people embrace it and support it or they go against it, but they're going to get left behind.
Yes, yeah, change is coming, and I want to just the last couple of questions to finish this episode, and one is, what would be one tip that you could give to people if they are interested in bringing some of these different ways that you've been talking about into their customer experience in their workplace or just in general?
Well, certainly increasing your skills. I mean, that's first and foremost. I highly recommend there's a university course certification program. You can do it online. I'm a very big fan of it. There's a couple universities in the United States that I could speak about and tell people why I liked it, what I learned, how I applied it. So I'd encourage people get in touch with me and I can tell you more. And a promotion code that I use, you could use it too. And it's about your skills. It's about practical and actionable knowledge, and then applying what you learn. And then it's working with people who can really help you. So if you're looking to get into the field, then talk to me. I can help you because it's about, you may have even been doing the work and not realize it. If you're in the field and you want to transform your brand based on newer ways, that also is important. And so you want to reach out to me or people like me who can help you take it to the next level. So education, hanging around the people that are doing it, not talking about it. They're doing CX right. And just keep educating yourself because it's there's so much to learn and do.
Yes, and learning never stops. It's one of the things that I love about life. I'm a learner always,
Yes.
always keeping that going. And lastly, Stacy, what is the one thing that you wish everyone in the world knew? This is a big question.
I am going to, God, I have so many answers to that. I wish everybody in the world would read my favorite book and apply what's called the 4 Agreements. Have you read that book?
Yes, Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay. The 4 Agreements is how I live my life. In fact, I wrote an article, I have a blog article on the 4 Agreements. I happen to relate it to customer experience and business leadership, although that's not what the book was, how it was written. I translated it. So I encourage people to read my blog summary, but read the book. And there's 4 agreements, and I want everybody to practice this because there would be more harmony in the world. And so the 4 agreements are: never make assumptions, be impeccable with your words. Our words are so powerful. Always do your best, and don't take anything personally. And there's so much behind those 4 agreements. So that's what I hope everyone will read, and my summary about it, and apply and do it.
Yes, such an amazing book. And yes, as you mentioned before, but also now, is applying this and walking the talk and not just talking the talk. So that's such an amazing resource to go and check out. Go and check out the book. I'm actually interested. I'm going to check out your blog post about that to see how you translate it into CX. And finally, Stacy, how can people find you?
Yes, I welcome it. So DoingCXRight.com. You can also find me on social media. So on Twitter, it's my name @Stacy Sherman, no E in Stacy. And I'm on Instagram under DoingCXRight and LinkedIn. So I welcome feedback. I welcome you to use the tools and resources I'm sharing. I welcome you to reach out to me for mentorship. And keep talking, keep sharing, because the more people are aware of CX and best practices in doing it, we'll have so much more satisfaction as employers, as employees, and as consumers.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, Stacey, once again, for this wonderful conversation, for taking the time to be here with us, and for everything that you're doing to enable others to do CX right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. If you learned something from this episode, I'd love to know. So once we share it, please comment, give us some feedback. As Stacey was saying, feedback is always welcome. That's the way that we improve. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Stacey, once again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.